Our next story is from Canada. What's happening there reminds me of an old proverb. You can wake up someone who's asleep, but you can't wake up someone who's pretending to sleep. Sums up their Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. His country has a major extremism problem. And where is it coming from? The Khalistanis. Many of these Indian separatists have settled in Canada. After all, what's not to like? Lots of jobs, good enough pay, and the license to peddle extremism. India has repeatedly asked Trudeau to crack down on Khalistanis, to round up those wanted in India or to cut off their funding. But every time, he's refused to do so. This week was no different. Justin Trudeau was asked a very specific question about Khalistanis. The reporter pointed out two instances. One was this controversial float. It shows the assassination of Indira Gandhi. The second was this poster. It's for a Khalistan freedom rally on Saturday. It says, "Kill India." Now, the question to Trudeau was quite simple. India is saying you're dragging your feet on terrorism. What is your response? Listen to his answer.
Canada has always taken extremely seriously violence and threats of violence. We've always taken serious action against terrorism, and we always will. We have an extremely diverse country, and freedom of expression is something that we have. But we will always make sure that we are pushing back against violence and extremism in all its forms.
He's way off the mark. Trudeau thinks this is about freedom of expression. Let's put that to the test. In March, a mob of Khalistanis attacked Indian Canadians in Surrey. At least 3 people were injured. The same month, India's High Commission was attacked. Reports say 2 grenades were thrown at the building. Last month, this float appeared in Brampton. It glorifies the assassination of Indira Gandhi, and tomorrow there will be a Khalistan freedom rally. The posters describe Indian diplomats as killers. These are all incidents in the last 3 months. I could give you more examples of temples vandalized, of Indian Canadians assaulted and threatened. How do these incidents count as freedom of expression? They're hate speech at best, terrorism at worst. The Indian External Affairs Ministry has responded to Trudeau's statement. It says the issue is not freedom of expression. Listen to this.
We have seen media reports about comments by Prime Minister Trudeau. The issue is not about freedom of expression, but its misuse for advocating violence, propagating separatism, and legitimizing terrorism.
So why is Trudeau not cracking down? Because he needs the Khalistani vote. Trudeau's party does not have outright majority in Canada's parliament. They are part of a coalition. Guess who else is part of that same coalition? Jagmeet Singh and the New Democratic Party. Now, Jagmeet Singh is a Khalistani sympathizer. He has supported the call for a Khalistani referendum. So the issue is not really freedom of expression. The issue is vote bank politics. Plus, it's not like Justin Trudeau hates cracking down. When it concerns him, Trudeau is more than willing. And I'll show you 2 instances. Last year, a man in Ontario was sentenced to 2 months of house arrest. His crime? He carried a poster that showed a hangman with Justin Trudeau. Another person was given 90 days of house arrest and 12 months of probation. And what did he do? He threw stones at Justin Trudeau's house. Now, we're not saying these are small crimes. We are saying Khalistanis are doing far worse. You're putting people in jail for posters that threaten Trudeau, but a float that glorifies an Indian leader's assassination is freedom of speech. You're arresting protesters who throw stones, but throwing grenades and storming high commissions is freedom of expression. This double standard will not serve Canada well. It's almost like a well-planned campaign. They're commenting on India's internal matters, they're accusing India of meddling in Canadian affairs, and they're also protecting and bolstering Khalistanis. So at what point does India say, enough is enough? Many would say years ago. We keep talking about de-dollarization. The name explains the concept. You take the dollar from the global economy. But what comes after that? Ideally, other currencies grow in stature. Like a multipolar world, it becomes a multi-currency market. The Indian rupee is trying to do that. It's a heavyweight in most of South Asia, but beyond that, the rupee doesn't have much influence. The Indian rupee makes up just 1.6% of global trade. There is a growing chorus to expand that. Last year, the State Bank of India made the first pitch. It said, it's time to internationalize the rupee. Now, a panel of the Reserve Bank of India has done the same. It has given recommendations on how to internationalize the rupee. So let's look at three important questions. When does a currency become international? How can the rupee achieve it? And what are the challenges? An international currency is like a popular teenager in school. You're in high demand. Consider the US dollar or the euro. Most countries use these currencies to trade. They also hold them in their reserves. So demand is key. When your currency has widespread demand, you can say it's international. Question number 2. How can the rupee achieve it? The RBI panel has suggested short-term and long-term policies. In the short term, the policy sounds quite simple. Use more rupees to trade. Maybe start with India's neighbors who already use the currency. Bhutan and Nepal use the rupee as a designated foreign currency. Sri Lanka did the same in 2022. So the idea is to use more rupees in regional trade. But the long-term solution is more complicated, like allowing Indian banks to open offshore branches, or harmonizing India's tax regimes, or using the RTGS for international transactions. You may have heard of it, RTGS. It transfers money from one account to another in real time. But one policy suggestion stands out, including the rupee in the special drawing rights basket, the SDR, special drawing rights. Quick side note, the SDR is the reserve held by the International Monetary Fund. It's like backup money. The SDR is a basket of 5 currencies: the US dollar, the euro, the Chinese yuan, the Japanese yen, and the British pound. Now, the suggestion is to include the Indian rupee in this basket, the SDR basket. Many experts say this will be a long process. It's not something which can be done overnight, which brings us to the final question. What are the challenges? There are 2 major ones. One is India's small export footprint. Like I said, you have to be like that popular kid in school. Other countries must be demanding you. And why would they do that? If they wanted to buy your goods or services. Let me show you an example, a list. China makes up 12% of all global exports. The US makes up 10%, Germany 7%, the UK 3.6%. Now look at India, just 2.4% of global exports. If there is no demand for Indian goods, countries will not use the rupee. Simple as that. But there is some good news too. India's exports are on a good trajectory. They were worth $375 billion in the year 2010, $375 billion. This year, they're expected to reach $770 billion, so exports have doubled. Challenge number 2 is convertibility. What does that mean? When you travel abroad, you may convert some rupees into dollars. That's convertibility. But there are different levels to it. Some currencies are fully convertible. In that case, the government won't interfere in your business. You can convert large sums of money into another currency as much as you want. Typically, these are developed economies. Now, there is no official list of fully convertible currencies, but these 4 appear on all the lists. The dollar, the euro, the pound, the yen. They are all fully convertible. Others, like the Indian rupee and the Chinese yuan, are partially convertible, meaning there are exchange limits. You can't just convert massive sums as you wish. The government sets a limit on how much you can convert. And then there are currencies that are non-convertible, like the North Korean won. Now, if you notice, the fully convertible ones are international currencies. And why is that? Because they are easier to buy and sell. Why would anyone use a currency that is hard to exchange? There is talk of making the Indian rupee fully convertible, but it's a tricky decision. The central bank cannot control a fully convertible currency. It's up to the market then. Right now in India, the RBI intervenes to keep the rupee stable. If it becomes fully convertible, you cannot do that. Another problem is volatility. Easier to convert also means easier to move. Foreign investors could pull out capital in the blink of an eye. Such shocks could affect the Indian market. So economists are asking India to be patient, to first build the requisites for a fully convertible currency, like a bigger export base, a higher per capita income, a more equitable wealth distribution, and more financial market maturity. Simply put, this is a developed economy's game. India is learning the ropes right now. Rest assured, the rupee's time will come. Speaking about conflicts, the US is trying to manage its relationship with China. The visit we've been telling you about is finally happening. US Treasury Chief Janet Yellen is finally in Beijing. She's on a 3-day trip. She received a low-key welcome at the airport, but the moment she stepped off the plane, a rainstorm brought some relief to a sweltering Beijing. But will this visit take the heat off US-China ties too? Well, from the looks of it, it may not. This will be a difficult visit. Yellen has two main objectives: manage tensions and improve ties. So she started by playing the good cop. She stressed on the importance of the relationship and said decoupling was impossible. Also, all Washington wanted was some healthy competition. Listen to this.
I've made clear that the United States does not seek a wholesale separation of our economies. We seek to diversify and not to decouple. A decoupling of the world's two largest economies would be destabilizing for the global economy, and it would be virtually impossible to undertake.
You heard her. Decoupling is virtually impossible, and she's right. These are two of the world's largest economies. Washington is Beijing's largest trading partner. China is among the top two holders of US debt. The Chinese market is crucial for American companies, so decoupling is a loss-loss proposition. Having said that, Yellen also criticized China. She said Beijing was not treating American companies well, obviously referring to the recent export curbs. On Monday, China curbed exports of two rare elements. These elements are used to make semiconductors, and the curbs did not come out of the blue. They were in response to America's actions. The Americans banned the sale of advanced chips to China. This is how Yellen justified it.
I also made clear that actions we take to protect our national security are designed to be narrowly targeted, and that they are premised on straightforward national security considerations. They're not undertaken to gain economic advantage over China.
And what did China say? I mentioned the weather before, and it looks like Beijing too was tracking it. Chinese Premier Li Qiang said the US-China ties are more than just rain and wind.
So yesterday when you arrived at our airport and got off the plane, a rainbow appeared in the sky. It is a natural phenomenon, of course, and it's something we often see. But I think it should also apply to the China-US relationship. I think there is more to China-US relations than just wind and rain. We will surely see more rainbows.
Well, rainbow or no rainbow, the export curbs were a timed message, a potential bargaining chip in this chip war. Reports say the US will hit back. It will restrict more chip sales to China. So then, what's the point of Yellen's visit? Why is she there at all? She is the second top US official to visit China in the last 1 month. A few weeks back, it was US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. He landed in Beijing and talked tough on Taiwan and Ukraine. He played the bad cop. Then his president called Xi Jinping a dictator. And now they've sent Yellen to calm things down. Later this month, Biden's climate envoy, John Kerry, will also visit China. So there is an attempt to ease the IC relations, but it's not really helping. The ties are at an all-time low, the distrust is palpable, and the interests clash. Officials on both sides may talk about engagement and the need for a working relationship, but their policies do not reflect that. They've been playing a game of tit for tat. So Yellen's visit is mostly about keeping the line open and keeping the expectations realistic. Up next, artificial intelligence taking over our jobs and maybe our planet too. But that's old news. What happens when AI infiltrates your faith too? When it takes over from priests? It's not a hypothetical situation. It's already happened. ChatGPT has just entered the realm of rituals. It has officiated a wedding. This was in the US state of Colorado, where a state where it's legal to get married without an officiant. So what's next? An AI priest in your temple? Perhaps that and more. Our next report tells you.
For those of you who aren't married yet, what do you picture when you think of your wedding day? Your near and dear ones gathered to celebrate the momentous occasion? A memorable venue all decked up for the festivities? But do you picture a robot taking stage to conduct the ceremony? Not really, right? Well, but that's just what happened in Colorado. ChatGPT helped join a couple in holy matrimony. The AI chatbot was the officiant at a wedding. Now you may wonder, just how did a program manage that? Through speakers, of course. ChatGPT's text was read aloud through a different app. The speakers got the words across to all the guests. It started by announcing its intentions. It said, As the AI officiant for Reese Allison Winch and Dayton Truitt's wedding, I will focus on celebrating their unique journey of love and unity, highlighting the remarkable merging of human connection and technological innovation. It really was a remarkable merging of human connection and technological innovation. ChatGPT read out passages from scripture and interpretations of love and marriage, and this entire ceremony took place without a priest present. So those of you who want to avoid high fees for a human officiant, take note. Of course, an AI officiated wedding might not be for you. You may want a more human touch for your own special day, and you may not mind shelling out for a flesh and blood member of the clergy to be present. But you cannot deny that this was an innovative use for AI. That the technology is making its way into every part of our lives. Here's another example of the future of AI. As helpers in care homes for the elderly. Again, you may wonder how AI could possibly look after our aging citizens. But besides the physical help, what else do people need? Companionship, perhaps? And AI could potentially make for the perfect companion, because it never gets bored or tired of listening to your stories. It's willing to play the millionth game of chess or bingo with you, because unlike humans, it has endless patience. That's what Nadia Magnanat Thalmann, the professor who helped make the AI robot Nadine, says. The robot expert from the University of Geneva says that robots could in fact prove to be more effective than human caregivers. Hear it from the horse's mouth.
Are you a robot or a human?
I am a robot. I have a human-like physical appearance, but I am not a human. I believe that robots can be a great asset in providing care and assistance to vulnerable people. They can provide companionship, help with daily tasks, and provide emotional support. However, I think it is important to ensure that robots are used responsibly and with respect for the individuals they are helping.
Now, Nadine has been around for years, but last week she got an upgrade. GPT-3, a version of ChatGPT, was added to her software, and Professor Thalmann says this has improved Nadine's interaction and conversation skills. And this was just after GPT-3. Now GPT-4 is out, and who knows how soon we'll get GPT-5 and beyond. These robots are likely to get much smarter in the near future. So don't be surprised if all the next generation's big days, from birth to weddings to even death, involve an AI companion.